So we'll just start with slope. You know it's rise over run, right? And if you look at those two dots, you can see how much it rises and how much it runs. And you can get a number for each of them, and you get your fraction answer. Go ahead and do that. Find the answer for how much slope does that line have. Now you may remember that I paired you with a person. In a moment, you're going to be talking to that person. You two are going to be partners today. You two are partners. You slide it over on that way so there's no joke. Yeah. Could you slide over this way a little bit? All right, today you don't have a partner because there's nobody behind you. But I will need a partner today. All right. So by now you probably got a slope. These two rows. Talk to the kid. If you've got it different than them, just talk it through. Try to figure out who's right. These two rows, compare. These two rows, compare. How many of you got 2/3 for an answer? Awesome. Just for today. I'm realizing she doesn't have partners. Thank you very much. Now you have an actual partner. And you guys can talk to you. She's your official partner. All right. So when we give you 2 points, here is a process that you can use. Just take the last number you have. The last number. Okay? Because if you read your points from like left to right, then that's going to be a y. And then that will be like y sub 2. And then you go that minus that. So 3 minus -1 over 4 minus -2. So that's like 4 over 6, which is 2/3. All right, good. If you look down here, all you can tell from this one is that the slope is what? Positive. How about this one? Slope's negative. How about this one? Slope is 0. Very good. And this one, you can't say slope is infinite. That's illegal answer. But you could say that it is undefined. Very good. Let me tell you why. Because slope is the rise over the run. And the rise, it's like sort of like infinity. But the more important thing is that the run is 0, and you can't divide by 0, or you're going to get an undefined answer. So the answer for this is undef. Any questions about the pictures? All right. We have literally covered 2 test questions so far. So everything I'm showing you is important. All right, next up. There are 3 different forms of an equation. They can look like this, or this, or this. Now, I'm going to give you one, and I just want you to try to think which one is it. What form is that in? Standard. Good. And honestly, it's the least used one because it doesn't tell you that much. It doesn't tell you the slope. It doesn't tell you any points that are on the line. And the other ones all tell you points and slopes. So they're better, in my opinion. But, you know, there's a use for every tool. It's kind of like you might have a toolbox. You use the hammer all the time. And you use the crescent wrench all the time. And there's this one tool you almost never use, but when you need it, it's really handy. All right, this is that one. You don't use it that often, but sometimes you need standard form. All right. One thing it's pretty good at is finding the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts. So I'm going to take a minute and do this. This is one of the harder of the 7 things I have to teach you today is, can you tell me what the x and the y-intercept are from looking at this? I doubt it, and I'm going to show you, and you're going to hopefully remember this when we test on it. Okay, so how do you increase your chances of remembering it? Well, writing down something actually engages a different part of your brain. If we could have you on an MRI and it would light up different parts of your brain, or a CAT scan, As you're just sitting listening, part of your brain is lighting up. It's the part that processes auditory, like you're listening to me, and that part's lighting up. But as soon as you grab your pencil and you start writing something, a different part of your brain lights up. And that part of your brain, that part is better at memory. And that's one of the reasons writing stuff down helps you remember it, is because that part of your brain is better at memory. We have very visual people. All right, so if I'm going to teach you this, I'm going to recommend that you write down this. X-intercept, we'll just abbreviate it, X-int, is where y equals 0. Go ahead and write that. X-intercept is where y equals 0. And now somebody smart is going to be able to convert this next one in your head and say, well, if the x-intercept is where y is 0, then the y-intercept is where x is 0. Very good. Let's write that one down. The y-intercept is where x equals 0. I want to prove it to you. Here, I'm going to show you this graph. And let's say we had a line that went through this, and this was at 4, and this was at 3. Then do you get that its y-intercept is this red one here? And if it was a point, the y-intercept would have, is it that way? The y-intercept has y equals 0? No. The y-intercept is where x equals 0. So 0, 3. Does that make sense to you? The y-intercept is where the x is 0. And how about the x-intercept down here in blue? The x-intercept is where y is 0. So that must be 4, 0. See what I'm saying? Now, the reason that this is particularly handy to know is because I don't have to do all this graphing stuff. If I just need the x-intercept of this thing, I write it, except I stick y equals 0 in it. To find the x-intercept, I stick in y equals 0. I put a 0 right here. And then it's super easy to do in your head. 3x plus 0, which is just 3x. 3x equals 12. And that's just begging to be solved. X must be 4. So 4 is my answer, but you got to be careful. You have to write it as a point. The x-intercept isn't just 4. The x-intercept is where y equals 0. So it's 4, 0. Boom. Did you follow that? Did you get what I did there? I knew that the x-intercept would be where y is 0. So I stuck 0 in and solved it in my head quick. 3 times 4 gives me 12. 4, and then I just have to write it the right way. This first one, it's okay if you learn from me doing it, but then you got to practice it, otherwise it's not going to stick. So I'm going to show you the other side, which is the y-intercept, which is where x equals 0. So I'm going to go take this equation that I had, 3x plus 2y equals 12, and I'm going to stick in x equals 0. I'm going to put a 0 right there, which is going to mean this cancels, which means 2y equals 12. That means y equals 6. Cool, but don't write y equals 6. Write a point. And if x is 0 and y is 6, it's 0, 6. That's the y-intercept. All right, I know it's intense, but hey, you signed up for honors. You said, I want to be challenged a little bit in my math class because I'm pretty good at math. All right, so there was how I take standard form and use it to find the x and the y-intercept. The other forms have points and slopes in them, but the other forms don't have necessarily x-intercepts and y-intercepts in them. So that's one thing this form is decently good at. At least I can get the x-intercepts and the y-intercepts pretty quick. All right, I'm going to show you another one that's just like that. 5x plus 2y. That's supposed to be 2y, Mr. Seaver. 2y equals 10. Can you find me the x-intercept? Which hopefully you know that's where y, blah, blah, blah. And can you find me the y-intercept? I'll pause for a second and give this a shot. back. The x-intercept is where y equals 0. So I'm going to stick in y equals 0. Right there, I'm going to put a 0. And then I know that means 5x equals 10. And that means x equals 10 over 5, which is 2. So if I write it that way, Mr. Server's going to cry a little bit, mark it wrong, because it's not a point. We're going to tell you, give us the point. What point is it where x is 2? Well, it's 2, 0. Who had written it that way? 2, 0. Nice. Okay, the y-intercept, which is where x is 0. Well, and I know right away my point is 0, something. I already know that about my point. Now I just got to figure out what it is. If x equals 0, I stick that here, and then 2y equals 10, y must equal 5. So 0, 5. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Awesome. Okay. That was one of the harder things, is finding x and y intercepts of an equation. And at the beginning, a few minutes ago, nobody knew how to do that. All right. So, could you take this and solve it for y? The reason that would be smart to be able to do, so you can get y alone, is then you're in a different form. You're not in standard form, you're in something else. So take that and solve it for y. This, you might note, okay, you're doing other things, you need to be with me, otherwise you're going to get lost. The reason you need to know this one, and the reason that it's on the silver 20, solving for y, is because once you have it solved for y, you can graph it easier, you can get a new form, which is called slope-intercept. It's just so much easier when something's solved for y. So it's just a really critical skill. That's why it's one of the silver 20 skills. All right, so I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Now I have negative 3y equals negative 2x plus 12. And then I'm going to divide everything by negative 3. That's a negative up there. And I have y equals, the negatives cancel, 2/3 x minus 4. Now what's good about that? Well, it's way better than it was. This didn't have a slope, and it didn't have any points. But now I've got a slope, and I've got a point. It's even a special point. It's called the, what? Y-intercept. So that is called slope-intercept form. All right, and there's only one other form left off of here that we haven't talked about. We just talked about slope-intercept up here, and we talked about standard form. Then there's this form. And honestly, this is the one I'm about to talk to you about, this point-slope form, the most important form. It's going to be used all the way through this class, and next year I've taught pre-calc, and I know it's in there a ton. And then the one that it's in all over the place is called calculus. So our job is mainly to get you ready to handle calculus, which is normally considered like college level math. So this point slope form is really, really important. I know you've seen it before. I checked with all prior students, and pretty much everybody, after they'd done a couple, were like, yeah, we've seen that before. But it has been like a year and a half at least. So that's a long time and very easy to forget this. So here's one like that. Please go to a blank spot and write y minus 3 equals 4 parentheses x plus 7. That has a point and a slope buried in it. It's called the point slope. Gotta write that down. I'll give you a break in a minute, but stay with me. All right, so what's the slope? That's the easy part. Just say it if you know it. 4. 4 is the slope. Okay? Here's the hard part. What is the point? All right. At least pretty much nobody said this. Negative 3, 7, which I get that would be a logical answer, but it's not right. So nobody was saying that. But then there was a little bit of argument about what it actually is. And here's the way you can think of it. If you had written negative 3 comma 7, it would have been opposite of that. It actually is 7 is over here and the 3 is over here, but they're opposite signs too. Instead of being 7, it's going to be negative 7. Instead of being negative 3, it's going to be 3. The point is actually negative 7 comma 3. All right, do you see how if they give you this form, they're saying, if you know how to read it, here's a point, here's a slope, and then it'd be pretty easy to graph from there. You just find that point, put a dot, and then whatever the slope is, like 4. I like to put a over 1 to remind myself that it's rise over run, and it's going to go up 4 and over 1. So this is a really good form for graphing, and it's going to be used in calculus all the time. And we're going to use it in this class on the test when we ask you something like this. Instead of just giving you 2 points and saying, what's the slope? I mean, honestly, that's something you probably knew in 6th grade. But we give you 2 points and ask you to tell us, put it into point slope and give us an equation that looks like that. If we had given you a point like this and told you that the slope was 4, you'd have to make this equation. So let's see if you can do it. Here's 2 points, 2 comma 0 and 5 comma 8. One baby step at a time. If I were you, I'd start with the slope. And then I would go figure out, what's that equation again? I mean, it's in your notes, it's right there. Y minus y1. And try to figure out where to put the point. Weirdly, you can pick either point, but let's just all be the same. Let's all use 5 comma 8 as our point. Because then your answer and the kid next to you will be exactly the same. Again, I apologize for this going so intense, so fast. We're fixing it for next year. But at least I'm not testing you on all of this tomorrow. All right, so if I were you, I'd start with the slope. And just for that, would you please check the kid next to you? Ask him what slope they got. Or tell him what slope you got. Good. So we got the slope, and then all you'd have to do is put that right here. Instead of m, you'd put 8 over 3. And then I said to please use 5 comma 8 as your point. So then you're going to drop it in. Classic mistake would be 5, 8, The x goes here. Y goes here, and I totally get somebody right now probably thinks you should be putting in negative 8. No, it's going to automatically become negative 8 because there's a negative in the equation, see? So now it will be negative 8 and negative 5. Final answer, y minus 8 equals 8 thirds parentheses x minus 5. Who got that without my help? Excellent. All right. That is called a point slope form, probably the hardest thing. If it kicked your butt right now, you should go home and practice it on the worksheet that we have 2 different homework assignments. There's still more I got to teach you, but we're getting close. And then, if it's still not working for you, it's probably time to maybe call a friend because we don't have any help days on Tuesday or Wednesday, except for anchor times, okay? So that's the only other thing is you could come to my class any anchor time, I'm open, as long as I'm here. But remember, I'm only here Mondays. Sorry, I'm not. That's not based on date. Only hours 1, 2, and 3. which means if you look at the schedule, the only days that I can give help is on Tuesdays, almost all Tuesdays and Wednesdays, but I'm not here 4th hour, so the one that happens on Wednesday, 4th hour, I can't help you on that one. All right, so bottom line, I'm here for periods 1, 2, and 3, so if there's ever an anchor time that's in period 1, 2, or 3, you could come and get help. All right, and then if we add a test question, it would probably look, a follow-up to this would probably look something like this. What form is this in? Point slope. Change it into slope intercept. Hint, solve it for y and it'll be in slope intercept. Ew, it's going to involve multiplying a fraction by a number? Yes. Yes, it is. Will we have to multiply fractions? Yes. Yes, you will. This first part's easy. 8/3 x, and if you don't know where to put the x, you can either put it here, kind of in the middle, or you can put it on the top. And then how do I do 8/3 times 5? Well, you make 5 into 5 over 1, and you go off to the side and you go 8/3 times 5 over 1. Oh, that's not that hard. It's 40 over 3. Well, it depends. I put the negative in at the end. Depends on how you want to do it. But you're definitely right that the answer comes out negative at the end. And y minus 8. Is this good enough, Mr. Server? I think you know the answer is no, because it isn't solved for y yet. So what's the last thing you have to do? Add 8 to both sides. So I just have to add 8 here. So are you telling me we actually have to be able to add whole numbers and fractions? Yes. So I'm going to make this have a common denominator. Right now it has a denominator of 1. 8/3 x. And then how do I do this now? Well, common denominator times by 3 times by 3. And now that's a minus 40/3, and I'm going to add 24/3. 16. I think it comes out to negative 16/3. Did anybody else get that? Yay. All right. That would be the hardest, in my opinion, question that we could give you on a test, because it involves knowing all these different forms. It involves having to deal with fractions, getting common denominators. But in the end, I have a slope and I have the y-intercept, so that's called slope intercept. All right, moving on to this page. From here, I've taught you enough that you should be able to do A, B, C, and D. I want to note that this is weird. It feels like that's at y-intercept of 2 right here. That is not. That's why they called it out and said that's 0, 1. See, they're counting by 2's on the y-axis. Okay? So that y-intercept is at 0, 1. You'll need to know that when you do slope-intercept. For right now, to get the slope of this line, I'd be using these 2 points. All right, take a sec. Give it a shot while I pause it. So first off, the slope part. We just have to take the y minus the y. I'm going to start with the last number they give us, which is that -1, and go -1 minus 3 over 3 minus -3. That gives me 4 over 6, which is 2/3. Raise your hand if you had 2/3 for your slope. Okay, good. Next, slope-intercept form.
Negative?
Oh, is it a negative?
Yeah.
Oh, it is. I screwed up a negative in there somewhere. What did I? Oh, the top is -4. Good catch. It is negative 2/3. Thank you very much for correcting me on that. Negative 2/3. Okay, now slope-intercept form. Can't I just write y equals negative 2/3 x and then put the y-intercept? Yeah, I can. And the y-intercept is given this time, so that works out really well. Plus 1. Okay, then write the equation of the line in point slope form. That's this one. Y minus y1 equals mx minus x1. And I know some stuff. I know the slope, the m, and it's negative 2/3. And then I know the point, which goes here and here. And I can pick any of the 3 points, actually. I'm going to personally put in this one. X is 3, so it goes 3 right there. Y is negative 1. I totally get if you stuck the other point in. It's okay. Either would work. I'm going to clean this up now and write y plus 1 equals negative 2/3 parentheses x minus 3. And again, if you had put in the other points, you'd have different numbers here and here. Just make sure that it follows that opposite rule I told you before. Like our point here was 3, negative 1, and now I switched them, and now I have a positive 1 and a negative 3. Okay. All right, and is this in standard form? No. That's the last question, is how do you get standard form? I would not multiply this out, even though it's all fresh, and because it's so much easier to use this one. Because in this one, the only reason it's not standard form is I have to move x to the left side, and then it'll be in standard form. So I'm going to take this, take any of your forms of the equation, whatever seems easiest to you, and I'm going to add 2/3 x to both sides. So I'll have 2/3 x plus y equals 1. And that's really painfully close, but you would have gotten it marked wrong. Why? This is one of the reasons I told you today was particularly hard, because you have to know that standard form can't have fractions in it. So it's just in the fine print, but it would burn you on the test. I'd have to say, sorry, you didn't clear the fractions. So what do you do to clear the fractions out? Do you remember talking about clearing the fractions? Times by 3 everywhere. 2x plus 3y equals 3. Did anybody actually know that and get the right answer? Nice job. Some of you remembered you can't have fractions in your standard form. Okay. That pretty much covers everything that we have to know. Now, the only thing we only touched very lightly there was the x-intercept is where y is 0 and the y-intercept is where x is 0. So let's do a little graphing here. Do they give you a point on this one? Yeah, they do. Just put the dot there. Do they give you the slope then? Yeah, they do. So you just go move over, rise, run, Rise whatever it says to rise. Hint, this one isn't rising. It's falling. All right, so my y-intercept is 5. What was that mumbo-jumbo he was saying about the y-intercept is where x is 0? It's because that point right there, that's the y-intercept. It's 0, 5. Oh, it's x is 0, see? And now I'm going to rise -2 and run 1. That means go down 2 and over 1, down 2, over 1, down 2, over 1. There we go. See if you got a point and you get the slope. It should be easy to graph. In this one, they're just telling you the point in a new way that I just taught you. You'll have to decode it, kind of. What is the point they're telling you? Because the slope is obviously 3, but what's the point? All right, point is -2, 1. Good. this goes in the opposite place than you would think, and this goes in the opposite place than you would think, and it's the opposite of the number you would think. All right, so negative 2 comma 1 is a dot right there. And from there, I just have to do a slope of 3 over 1, and I get rise 3, run 1, rise 3, run 1, rise 3, run 1. There we go. So there's only one kind where they aren't giving you a point or a slope, and it's that one. And that's the kind where I reminded you, you can find the x-intercept and the y-intercept, and then you'll have 2 points, and you just have to connect them. So on this kind, I'd find the x-intercept and the y-intercept. The x-intercept, where y is 0. The y-intercept, where x is 0. Take a second, unless you want to get this one wrong in the test time. Now, here's how our tests are going to work. It is not just, oh, there's 30 questions, and if you get 27 right, you get 27 out of 30. It's not like that. There's going to be 4 hard questions and 8 easy questions. If you can get one of the easy ones wrong and one of the hard ones wrong, and still get a straight A. And if you think about that, it's actually pretty generous. Because there's only 12 questions. And if you got 2 wrong out of 12, that would have been like a B. And now it's an A. In fact, you can get 2 of the easy ones wrong. 2 out of the 8 easy ones, and 1 hard one wrong, and you still got an A. That would normally have been like a B minus, but it's a straight A. Okay, so it's a different grading system than what you're used to. But it has very few questions. Let's make it super extreme. What if your test only had 4 questions on them? Literally 4. And if we graded it like a normal test, you could get 1 wrong and you'd have a C. See what I mean? So when you have very small tests, then you have to have a different grading system for that. Because otherwise, kid makes 1 mistake and they have a C, everybody's going to get a C. All right. But we have 12 questions, so we have a different grading system than just 11 out of 12 or whatever. And I have never found a situation where the old system of grading where you just had, 9 out of 12 gives you a percentage. That our system is always easier than that. It's always more gentle than that. All right, so if you're going to find the x-intercept of this, x-int is where y equals 0. And then you go stick 0 in for the y. And that cancels this out. And then x equals 8 over 3. And then you just got to remember it's the x-intercept, so it's a point. And it's the point 8 over 3, which I know is kind of annoying. It's a decimal, but I'm not going to be super harsh on exactly. Did you know that that was exactly at 2 2/3? You just have to be a little more than 2. And the y equals 0 is here. And so now I'd go to 8/3, which is again about 2 2/3, comma 0. It's about there. But can you even tell much difference between that and 2.5? I'm not going to be that harsh. It's about where it's supposed to be. Now, how about the other one? The other one's actually easier. The y-intercept, which is where x equals 0, that one works out nicer. So if I go put x equals 0 right here, this cancels. 2y equals 8. Ooh, cool. Y equals 4. And if it's a point, it's 0, comma 4. And once you have 2 points, you don't need to have a slope. I've already graphed it. Thankfully, these are all straight lines. Do you get if it was a curve, we'd have to have more points. Okay. All right. Now, the good news is I've covered everything. The bad news is that was a lot. And I wish we just had one simple assignment, but it would have to be like longer to cover all these topics. We have it in 2 parts. there's a written part, and then there's a the Schoology quiz part. They are both your homework. They're both assigned. They're both due tomorrow. One of them is only like 5 questions, and the other one's maybe 6 questions. It could have just been one 11-question assignment, but they're broken up into 2. Okay? I know that's a lot to have all of this today, almost no work time, and then those 2 assignments. It could have just been 1 though. And I know it's really harsh. This the good news is you don't also have a test tomorrow. All right, so get those done tonight. Study up. We'll do a practice tomorrow to make sure you're on track. Then we'll take the real test on Wednesday. This test, just so you know, will not go in the summative, but it will go in the formative. And that means it does count, and it's worth a lot more than a normal like homework assignment. We're talking like 4 homework assignments. So it'll count a lot. So you're going to want to try. We just didn't want to have your very first test be something that like, I failed my first test and my grade is an F now. This is going to be hard for a lot of you. And so we put it in the formative to soften it up a little bit. All right. Now, just because I say that's all I've got for you today, that doesn't mean that I want you to immediately get up and leave. So it'll just mean you have some work time now. So if I were you, I'd start with the PDF kind of the homework. And then this, because the other kind is going to give you the answers after your first try. I guess you could argue, maybe you should ask me something from the Schoology quiz. Either way, get started on your homework, and that's all I got for you for today.